Hi guys, it's James here at Full Fat 4x4. So as promised, the 5 litre versus 4.4 TD V8 comparison, well, here it is. Sorry it's taken so long. This particular car has had a few things that it's required. So yeah, I'm going to take it for a little drive, share my thoughts, and we'll go from there. So yeah. So where do I begin? I'm going to start with the gearbox. So on all of the 5 litres, you get the 6-speed ZF gearbox. So it was only the 4.4 TD V8 in the Range Rover that got the 8-speed box, and it's fine. You know, the 6-speed box there's no problem with it. I actually think it suits the L322 really well. And I've said the same about the 3.6 TD V8, so that has a 6-speed gearbox in it as well. And I think the low down gears, it suits it really well because it hangs on to 1, 2, and 3 nicely, whereas sometimes the 8-speed can kind of jump around a little bit in those low gears. So yeah, I think the box suits the car absolutely fine. But just in terms of like how you denote that a Range Rover, an L322 has a 6-speed or 8-speed gearbox, it's to do with the gear selector. So all the 6-speed boxes have this gear stick. All of the 8 speeds have a rotary dial. So that's the first biggest difference between the 4.4 and the 5 litre. So just in terms of specs, the 5 litre has 500 horsepower. The 4.4 TD V8 has 313. In terms of torque, the 5 litre is at 640 Newton meter, whereas the 4.4 is at 700 Newton meters. Now, you know, I think to normal mortals like me, you're probably not really going to notice much of a difference in terms of torque. So I wouldn't really worry that, you know, you think, oh, well, if I buy the petrol, it might not be, you know, might not have enough torque. It's just not the case. It's ample. And actually, with the 6-speed box, it suits the torque profile of the vehicle very nicely. So yes, the 5 litre, so 500 horsepower out of this supercharged V8. It's quite a stealth car, this, because when you're just sort of driving along normally, you know, it's very mild-mannered, very well-behaved. But when you kind of put your foot down, by God, it just sort of lights up and goes. It really is quite phenomenal. Now, I think the 4.4, that goes just fine. But when you put your foot down on this 5 litre, it really is something else. It's a very, very impressive motor. So just in terms of the history, the 5 litre, this is the AJ V8, and it's in generation 3 form in the L322. So it's a development from the previous 4.2 petrol. Now, in the UK, you could only buy the 5 litre supercharged variant in the autobiography specification. So it's just adorned with leather everywhere, leather headlining, leather door cards, leather dash. It's a proper opulent place to be. I think that in terms of the comparison, if you know, some people have called the L322 an everyday Bentley, and I definitely agree with that sentiment, especially when you're in this variant with the 5 litre petrol engine and the autobiography interior. You know, everything is super, super plush and luxurious. And, you know, the added benefit of an L322 over something like a Bentley is that you can actually use this daily. You know, it's a very practical vehicle, which will just cope with, you know, all of what life throws at you. So I think definitely that kind of everyday Bentley sentiment is definitely true. Now, just going back to sort of differences between the 4.4 and the 5 litre, so that you can't, you know, there's not a lot of difference on the exterior to denote between the two. However, the 5 litre has some very special exhaust pipes, Well, I say special, they're not that special, they're just exhaust tips, but they're very different to the 4.4 TD V8. And to my knowledge, that is one of only two specific differences on the exterior look of the vehicle. The other one is the side mesh grills. So the 5 litre had like a very specific design in the two side vent grills, and again I'll show you that a bit later. But other than that, it's quite difficult to actually tell the difference between the two. So you kind of really need to know what you're looking at in order to pick up the differences on the exterior. And I think that's actually quite a good thing, because going back to the previous comment I just said about this being a bit of a stealth car, I feel like it's a stealth wealth car, because, you know, let's not beat about the bush. You need a few quid to both buy one of these and to run it. I've been asked specifically not to talk about fuel consumption by one of the viewers, so I'm not going to, other than to say I have a very neat solution for when you fill up at the pump, and that's these glasses. So yeah, you can just put those on, and then you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about how much fuel you're putting in. Just put your glasses on and fill her up. And that's all you really need to worry about. So yes, having just filled it up, 125 quid, and it's not even a full tank. But I didn't know it was 125 quid, because obviously I was wearing these glasses, which definitely helped take the pain out of it. So yeah. Anyway, jokes aside, it is a stealth wealth car. You need a lot of money to buy it. You need a lot of money to own it. You need a lot of money to maintain it. And I feel like it's the automotive equivalent of buying a solid white gold watch. You know, if you put that on your wrist, to most people, it would just look like a stainless watch. However, only you really know that that's possibly a £30,000 watch you got on your wrist. Okay, that's not the case with buying the car, obviously, because these can be had now for between £10,000 and £25,000. But it's like anything. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you go out and buy one at £10,000, because you're probably going to be walking into quite a few issues. Now, on the subject of issues, it is worth talking about. So there is a specific 5 litre issue, and that is the timing chains. And it's something to do with the tensioners, how they basically push against the guide rails, which keep the chain in tension. So it's not a very good design. And basically the tensioner piston is harder than the aluminium guide rail that pushes the chain into tension. So over time they basically wear, and you can get timing chain slack. Now the good thing is that you will get some warning, so both in fault codes and also you'll be able to hear it rattle. Now it is important though that you don't kind of get yourself into a world of panic thinking that your engine is rattling away. This is a direct injection, petrol direct injection engine, so you can hear the injectors ticking away when the car is started. So you don't need to panic immediately that, oh God, I can hear some ticking noise, timing chains are going to snap imminently. No, don't. It will be more pronounced than that. It'll be a proper rattle, and it'll be very different to the injector ticking, which is rhythmic and consistent, whereas the rattle is more of an oscillation. It'll kind of come and go, and that's how you can tell the difference between its normal running and a timing chain issue. What I would say is, interestingly, so this one had a coolant leak, which I've now addressed. However, in the process of finding a good garage to address that, I found quite a few, even Land Rover specialists, who said, no, we don't want to touch that. We don't want to touch the 5 litre. So I think that this car is now kind of sitting in it's specialist even for the specialism. It's niche within the niche. If the L322 is, has become a specialist car, then the 5 litre even more so. So if you are thinking about buying one, it is going to be important for you to find a reputable garage, someone who has experience dealing with the 5 litre and its specific foibles to help you look after it. So if you are in the market, do your homework for someone local who's happy to work on the 5 litre. And I think the reason for that is that they're not a very common derivative. You know, if you have a look on Auto Trader at any one time, there's probably around about 350 L322s between 2010 and 2012 for sale at any one time, and the 5-litre petrol makes up less than 10% of that. There's normally between 20 and 25 on the market at any one time. So yeah, definitely more of a specialist car, this, and it needs to be treated as such with respect to your maintenance regime. I am very impressed with this, and I can definitely see why these have now started to get a following. And I can, if you have a look at the L322 owners groups and Facebook and all that kind of good stuff, there's plenty of armchair generals out there saying, oh, buy the 5-litre instead of the 4.4. And that leads me on to the next point. The big advantage that the 5-litre petrol has over the 4.4 TD V8 is it is ULEZ compliant. And what that means is that Sadiq Khan wants you to buy one of these cars. In fact, Sadiq Khan actually he has a chauffeur-driven 5-litre armoured L405. I'll try and find a picture of that and flash it up. But yeah, basically, Sadiq Khan likes these cars. And whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I do not know. However, I shall leave that up to you, whether or not you think that's a good thing or not. But that is an advantage. It's better for this is a more environmentally friendly car. Well, I never thought I'd be saying that. Certainly in terms of emissions with respect to particulate, there is obviously a lot less particulate emission from a petrol engine compared to the diesel one. So it does have that advantage. If you live within the M25 and you want to scratch the L322 itch, well, petrol really is the only answer for you. However, the 4.4 TD V8 I think is much more of an everyman's car. I was doing some maths the other day, which is rare for me because I'm not very good at it, but I was comparing the efficiency of the 4.4 versus the 5-litre. And when I say efficiency, I don't mean MPG, I mean in terms of ability to turn the chemical energy in diesel and the chemical energy in petrol into go. Now, my basic maths, which I won't bore the arse off you with, basically said to me that this 5-litre petrol supercharged engine is 30% efficient. So it has an efficiency factor in terms of the energy in that petrol, turning it into power to move it along, 30%. Which, is not bad really for a massive petrol engine in terms of just simply turning that fuel into usable power. Now, the diesel, however, with its twin turbo, that really is the star of the efficiency game, because that has an efficiency of about 40%. So for every molecule of diesel engine, you can actually get useful work out of 40% of it, which is quite phenomenal, really. If you think about normally those sorts of figures are kind of reserved for the biggest of diesel engines. I think the most efficient diesel engine out there is something like 50%. So that's not far off. It's very impressive. Well, what would I have? Would I have the 5-litre or would I have the 4.4? That's a tough question. The grin factor, there's no denying that the 5-litre gets it. When you really punch it, it does put a grin on your face. But interestingly, it's not as savage as something like an SVR, Range Rover SVR. This isn't a hooligan's car at all. This is a proper gentleman's car. This is. Its power builds nicely. It doesn't just sort of deliver all in one hit like the SVR does. It's a very gracious car, this, and I think that it is a joy to drive. One of the things that I really like about it is how sort of silky smooth it feels, both going up and down the gears and also through the rev range. It really does feel very, very smooth, very refined, and it has got a nice grumble, which you may not be able to pick up. It's very subtle. This, as I say, this is not a hooligan's car. You know, if you want something that's going to pop and bang and go crazy and burble away, well, this isn't for you. This is much more subtle. I have seen people who have deleted the back box off their V8s, and it does sound excellent, very burbly. Yeah, that's nice, that. Yeah, oh, I do like a big petrol V8. There. I think that might have answered my question in terms of which one I would have. It's a very special car, and also I think what's you know, quite is worth saying about this is that this is really the end of the era in terms of, I think this is possibly the last true Range Rover. You know, big boxy space, you know, shape, big opening in the back, super plush, very luxurious, very refined motor, oceans of power. I think this is the end of a dynasty. That having been said, I mean, you know, the new Range Rover still has a big petrol V8 option. Interestingly, that's going back to BMW. So for a very long time in the L405, that featured a 5-litre petrol engine, which was a derivative of this one. So just sort of basically the same block. I think it had a few tweaks. It did. They eventually got round to fixing the timing chain issue. I'm not sure exactly what year, but by fitting some basically hard points to the tensioners to stop that, to stop the tensioner kind of wearing through the guide. But yeah, interestingly, on the new Range Rover, they've gone for a 4.4. I think it might be twin turbo petrol BMW engine. So it's interesting, isn't it, how kind of things, you know, come and go, because the L322, I believe, started life with a 4.4 BMW petrol engine, and at that point BMW owned Land Rover, so it was all part of the same group. So interesting, isn't it, how things come and go. You know, the Genesis, it goes from the BMW, the 4.4 petrol engine, which doesn't have a great reputation, then to the 4.4 AJ V8 Jaguar, which is generally reckoned to be a pretty good motor, then to the 4.2 supercharged engine, which again generally reckoned to be quite good, then to the 5-litre supercharged. That featured in the L405 series, and then lo and behold, back to BMW. So interesting that Range Rover has kind of gone back to where it started. So I'll be very interested to see what that is like. Yes, just quickly in terms of vehicle-specific issues. So because this is a massive 5-litre petrol engine, it creates a lot of heat. And in that engine bay, you know, it is quite congested. You really have to be careful keeping on top of your coolant. I think if you are going to be buying a 5-litre petrol or any petrol Range Rover, I think, you know, you do need to be a bit more on it with your sort of weekly checks to make sure that, you know, your oil level is sufficient, your coolant level is sufficient. You really do need to keep on top of the cooling system. And it does have a reputation for going through hoses like they're going out of fashion. So, you know, because all that heat in there is creating, you know, expansion. When things get hot, they expand. That applies to both the rubber hoses and also the aluminium hoses. Then they contract when the vehicle cools, and, you know, you keep going through that, you know, hundreds of times throughout, well, thousands of times throughout the life cycle of the vehicle. And, you know, eventually those hoses and cooling pipes, they're just going to crack and they're going to need replacement. So, you know, if you are buying one that doesn't have its timing chains done, then, you know, it's a good opportunity to kind of do a complete overhaul of the both the cooling system and also the timing chains whilst you're at it. So, yeah, I think that's kind of it for vehicle-specific issues. I hope you have found that interesting, and, you know, hey, it's a lovely day. We've enjoyed some fabulous scenery. It's actually handover day today for this one. So this is going to a gentleman in the southeast who is, I believe, very excited to be picking it up. So I'm looking forward to meeting him later on. You know who you are, and I think you have bought yourself an absolutely fabulous car. But I'm probably not going to throw in the 20 quid note lenses. I'll be keeping those for myself. Brilliant. Okay, cheers guys.